Hi, everybody. It is still July 21, 2021. I want you to listen to this. I so want you to circulate it. It is so outrageous what is happening to these kids in schools. It is so now an experience of just, it's traumatizing, it's abusive. And I was listening to this and I was thinking about all of the kids who come from abusive homes. And many of those kids found some relief in school. They don't find any relief anymore. And I was thinking of myself. You know, I was traumatized in school for different reasons because I had no clue what was going on and my teachers hated me. But I came from a woman who had utter contempt for my existence and a very violent home. If I had to sit in class and listen to this being read to me, I would have been even more traumatized by it. Now, this is going on because parents, on the whole, which means not every parent, but on the whole, the majority, were so not involved in what was happening in the schools until COVID hit the scene. And then they found out a little bit. Well, their kids were home Zooming classrooms. And then critical race theory. Okay. But the sexually explicit material, K through 12, or I'm sorry, some of it was so sexually explicit that it was, I think, junior high and high school. But this is K through 5, 5th grade. And it is wit and wisdom. It's the wit and wisdom curriculum in this school. So, Moms for Liberty. I believe this is Tennessee. Listen to this.
I'm a parent and I'm with Moms for Liberty. I'm here to tell you about 4th grade Walk 2 Moons. These are quotes. My mother screamed just once, one long mournful wail, and then it was quiet. When the doctor carried the baby out of the room, I asked to see it. It had a pale bluish tinge and there were marks on its neck where the umbilical cord had strangled it. It might have been dead for hours, the doctor told my father. I asked if I could touch her. She was still a little warm from being inside my mother. I thought maybe if I held her, she would wake up. I slept beside my mother until I heard her calling my father. When he turned on the light, I saw the blood spread out across the bed. It had soaked the sheets and the blanket and it soaked into the white plaster of my cast. She wouldn't stop bleeding. Later, my mother said they took out all of my equipment. She would not have any more babies. The teacher's manual gives 3 separate warnings for the emotionally mature content in this book. With all of the great literature out there, why are we reading books that require this many warnings? Page 91 of the teacher's manual states the sophisticated cognitive work builds a foundation for critical thinking, including concepts related to social justice.
Quote. Kimberly Calcote, District 6, Moms for Liberty. For the 2nd grade book, Separate is Never Equal, the teacher manual states that the text is too complicated for the kids to read, so instead, the teacher is to have the kids focus on the illustrations. These illustrations include Mexican children behind fences at a pool with the sign reading, "No dogs or Mexicans allowed," eating lunch in a pasture with cows and flies, and Sylvia crying at school with white children around her. Statements from the book include, they have problems with lice, impetigo, and tuberculosis. They have generally dirty hands, face, neck, and ears. One character is asked, do you believe white students are superior to Mexicans in personal hygiene, scholastic ability, clothing, and their ability to take part in the activities at school? And the character answers yes. This story is about a remarkable family fighting for equality that they deserve, but it's being taught at an age that our children cannot fully understand the gravity of the landmark decision. This is just another lesson that is age inappropriate and does not fully balance this historical account of where we've come from to where we are now.
Teresa Dicklock, District 2, Moms for Liberty. This is an excerpt from the 4th grade George versus George book, page 48. Besides constantly stealing food and horses, the Redcoats burned entire towns and villages, looted or seized houses, raped and murdered innocent civilians, and set fire to crops in timberland. British troops locked prisoners in filthy ships where they died from flies, starvation, heat, cold, and disease. Indians fighting alongside the British burned almost 1,000 homes, tortured and killed whole families, and scalped the dead, believing that it would make them more powerful. Some Indians honored their bravest victims by eating them. For revenge, rebel troops sent by Washington destroyed 41 native villages, many which were peaceful, and burned all their crops and orchards. They collected scalps and showed off pairs of pants made from the skins of these dead Indians. While there are other quotes worth mentioning, it is important to note the violent images on these pages I just read, including children running out of their homes being shot, soldiers shooting Indians while females are running away with babes in arms, soldiers setting fires to a house that still has a child alive inside. Time.
Hi, good evening. Michelle Sutton, District 12. I want to talk about some fourth grade books. There's 3 different books that include cannibalism, which I think is very inappropriate for 9 and 10-year-olds. In Gifts from the Gods, the story says, quote, "He invited the gods to a banquet at his house and had his own son, Pelops, cooked up and served as a meal. Nobody knows why he did such a dreadful thing." End quote. In Understanding Greek Myths, it says, "It might seem unusual to us, but many myths include stories of people, mainly children, who were sliced, cooked, and eaten. However, the victims were sometimes coughed up whole or rescued and put back together, as good as new." In Pushing Up the Sky, there's a play that the kids act out called The Cannibal Monster. The play says things like, "Run for your lives," and "Eaten alive." This is a story about how the cannibal monster wanted to kill and eat people, but Brown Bear killed it. However, Brown Bear ignored the advice of the raven and burned the cannibal monster. From the fire, you hear, "You have set me free. Now I will eat you forever." It says, quote, "The smoke is turning into little creatures."
Robin Steenman, District 12. Wit and Wisdom is a failed curriculum. A lot of talk has been paid to the new Tennessee ELA standards adopted in 2018 and how that drove the selection of Wit and Wisdom over other more traditional curriculums. That would be a valid argument had Wit and Wisdom actually passed those standards. It miserably failed the first review. Those reviewers were fired and new ones hired, presumably to re-review it at a lower standard. Even so, it failed again. And the DOE granted waivers for failed materials and created its own free supplemental material to help prop up Wit and Wisdom. So when we applaud great minds for replacing a book, or the curriculum department pats itself on the back for removing a text, or adding quarterly reviews, or distilling something into piecemeal PDF files, let's all remember the fundamental fact that Wit and Wisdom is a failed curriculum, and it has traumatized Williamson County kids. Can we all agree that Williamson County deserves a curriculum that meets standards?
Time.
Shanna, District 9. Leadership and many on the board have failed Williamson County. You have not lived up to your duties of your positions and lost our trust and respect. If you had the best interests of the kids in mind, why would leadership choose to implement a curriculum that didn't meet Tennessee standards and failed multiple reviews and required a waiver? If you have the best interests of our kids in mind, why choose a reading curriculum that doesn't contain a phonics component? If you had the best interests of our kids in mind, why force them to read, discuss, and review curriculum that is dark and tragic with content that discusses suicide, ideation, extreme emotion, graphic death, cannibalism, divides the races, and is anti-American? If you had the best interests of our kids in mind, why did many of you refuse to sit down with parents and understand and address their concerns? If you had the best interests of kids in mind,
Sorry. I didn't mean time.
If you had the best interests of kids in mind, why don't you conduct a more in-depth review of the curriculum and not push it through in a short time? The reason is you don't have the best interests of your kids in mind. You're pushing an agenda and you're responding to money. If you should be ashamed of this. If this is your best, resign. You failed Williamson County. Vote to not extend Golden's contract. Get rid of this curriculum and stand up for the kids and parents you choose to represent. Our next.
Okay. That is not a failed curriculum. That is, and that the last mom who spoke is exactly right. This is an agenda. It is traumatizing children. Now, I get a lot of comments from people, and I have throughout the years. And these comments are essentially, nothing has changed. It's always been this way. We never had freedom. We were always indoctrinated. If you haven't noticed that things have gotten a lot worse, then you have no awareness at all. These people who are bringing this kind of material into school for such K through 5 should be arrested. They should be arrested. They would have been decades ago. They would have been when I was in grammar school. This would never, ever, ever have flown in the 60s. How did we get here? How did we get here? Because nobody held anybody accountable. This has been incremental, but it's gotten to the point now that it is so in your face that this is evil. And I do not say that word in a religious context. There is evil in the world, and it is spreading wildly around this country. The kids who are subjected to this, that's where you draw the friggin' line. What are we doing as adults? Allowing other adults to traumatize children. And it doesn't matter if you have children or not. You know, as adults, it is our responsibility to protect children. And we failed. We have failed. All of us. And it's just so heartbreaking. But when I think of these kids, you know, even the kids who are coming from healthy, non-abusive homes get abused in school. I'm 62 years old. It was hard for me to listen to some of that. What are these kids doing with this in their brains? What's happening to them? But the kids who are coming from abusive families, the kids who are coming from parents who don't love them, especially the kids who are coming from parents who hate them, and they are listening to this kind of material, it brings to that child, there ain't no safe place at all. And adults in and outside the family are, well, scary beings. Okay. Muslim parents organize protest against dildo butt monkey. Yeah. A library in London was forced to apologize after children were exposed to a man wearing a rainbow-colored, bare-bottomed monkey costume with a lifelike dildo hanging from his crotch. I mean, the adults at that library thought it was okay, and then there was, some outrage coming from parents, and they had to apologize? Everyone at that library who's an adult, who was on for that day, and also brought this about, should be fired immediately. That's, I mean, I'm really, I am just so, I'm done with adults. There's something so messed up in so many adults' brains that what do I do? I just, stutter. But there was the video, which I want to show you. Yeah. Unbelievable. Here it is. Look at this. Yeah, we live in a very sick, twisted world. There's no audio. What adult does this? They're mentally ill. They're so sick. And they need to stay away from children, but they're deliberately brought to children to traumatize them. Right. This is appropriate for children, and his butt hanging out. I have not been able to verify if this is indeed a consent form from Scottsdale Unified School District. It seems easy enough to do. If anybody wants to do it, go for it. But I've seen some pretty wild consent forms coming out of our fabulous public schools. Dystopian novel. This is what it's like. Okay. Scottsdale. And oh, I wish this was... I can't make this bigger. So it's a 21-22, the incoming school year. Parent legal guardian consent to participation in social, emotional behavior screening. That's enough for me to leave that unsigned. But a whole lot of people are going along with this social, emotional learning. The electronic signature attached to this annual verification packet authorizes the school to complete, or the district, to complete an emotional health and wellness screening of my child, giving over to essentially strangers to complete an emotional health and wellness screening of my child and to collect personal information, including but not limited to income or other family information, medical history or medical information, mental health history or mental health information, and quality of home and interpersonal relationships, student biometric information, or illegal, antisocial, or self-incriminating behavior critical appraisal of individuals within a close relationship and gun ammunition ownership. I further understand that upon my request, the Scottsdale School District shall provide any available information regarding the screening to me in a timely manner, including the dates, methods used, information collected, and reasons for administration. Oh, let me sign away. Now, they're collecting a whole lot of information, and they have been for many, many years, without the parents' knowledge. So, I could see this as, all right, we're going to hand you this, and let's see how many sign it. Let's collect data on all of the parents who don't sign it. on those who do sign it. But what parent in their right mind would sign this? Especially when at the bottom, they're saying the parents have to request all of this information. And upon request, what are they going to get? The methods used, the dates, the information collected. Afterwards, mom and dad, afterward, or you're going to request that information? Don't you want to know when and what the methods are before? Okay. I will link below. I really hope that you circulate this. Circulate it far and wide. Because this is not just happening in Tennessee. I can assure you. It's happening across all schools and private. And yeah. If you feel fine about traumatizing children, you won't do anything. You'll just let it. You'll watch it and go, oh, that's horrible, and then just go on to the next video. Please circulate this. The link is below.